Good evening. That's not how you say it. Good evening, everyone. I suppose good morning or good afternoon or good night or whatever, depending on where you are. Hello, Rich. I thought I'd just do a little live stream because it's been a while since last time. It's been almost a month, like 3 weeks, I think. So it's time to have another chat with you guys. Oh, it's very quiet. It's probably better now, right? Zevi's here. Hello, Zevi. Always nice to see you. Hey, Yuan. I think I fixed the volume by now, didn't I? Yes, good. Okay. Hi, everyone. Awesome. So last time someone suggested to me that I should put on some kind of slow chat, which I don't know how to do, but the chat seems to be fine so far, so I'll just leave it as it is. Hi, nice to see everyone. I've just finished my new video today, like completely, which is the video on Sufi music, which has been a big project. I've been working on that I'm wanting to do that. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, basically since I started the channel, and I've been working on it for a few months now. And I just finished it today, and I'm kind of exhausted, to be honest. And it should be coming out on Friday. I did a poll yesterday. I think some of you have seen it, and I asked for help regarding the name. And one of them certainly got more votes than the other. Now there's a problem there because the one that got the most votes is the title, the music of Islamic mysticism. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that, the word mysticism carries a lot of problems, and I kind of don't want to lead with that word, although I do recognize that it's kind of clickbaity, as I said, like it will draw the attention of a lot of people. And so what I will end up doing probably is that I will combine the two most popular options. So the video will probably be named something like "What is Sufism?" and then "The Sound of Islamic Mysticism" or something like that. I think that's a good compromise to not be too problematic by leading with the word mysticism, but still having it there to be appealing to a lot of people. Thank you, Lawrence Lowe, so much for the donation. And thank you for the kind comment. I appreciate that very much. So, Sufi music. It's always been one of my main fields of interest and main fields of study. It's kind of one of the things that even got me into Sufism to begin with, because I had been listening to, Sufi music is a very broad term, and a lot of things can fit into that category, depending on who's talking, of course. But, I listened to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan when I was growing up. I listened to Yusundur, for example, who does sing, has Sufi themes in his lyrics, and that kind of thing. I always loved that music before I even knew that it was Sufi music in particular. And then when I started studying religion and Islam and started focusing on Islam, and then I found Sufism and realized that, I've been listening to this stuff my whole life. So that was a given thing for me. So so throughout all of my studies in religion, that's been a recurring theme. I did my bachelor's on music, I guess, in the Muridiya Sufi Brotherhood in West Africa. Not really music. It ended up not being so much about music, but more so about the recitation of the Khasida of Ahmadu Bamba. And so that topic has always been with me, and I've always studied that. And so I wanted to do a really comprehensive, good video about Sufi music, since I've had so much background in studying that. And so it's going to be a long video. It's one of my longer videos. It's about an hour long. So it's not as long as the Ibn Arabi video, but kind of. It's up there with my longest videos, but I'm very happy with it. I'm really excited to for you guys to see it too. So it's going to be both, you know, going through the practical side of Sufi music in terms of the sama ritual. You know, I don't want to give too much away right now for those who are uninitiated, so to say, but Sufism has this practice called sama, which not all Sufis agree with. Some Sufis have practiced it, many Sufis have practiced it in history, some have rejected it, but they have this thing called sama, which means listening or audition, in which music and recitation of poetry is employed to help the practitioner enter sort of ecstatic states, ideally. And so what I will talk about is the sort of history and practice of sama in the earliest periods and then later in different Sufi orders, as well as, you know, defining Sufi music more broadly. I will also be diving into more contemporary, what I call art music that employs Sufi themes, like, you know, like I mentioned, Yusundur or Sami Yusuf and so on. And then the second part of the video is a theoretical part, basically, where I talk about, you know, theories, the philosophical positions of the Sufis towards music, like the role of music and sound from a metaphysical point of view and psychological point of view. It's going to be great. Thank you to Sarcastic Syringe. I like that name. Thank you for the donation. And thank you again for the kind comment. I really appreciate that my content is valuable to you guys. It's always nice to hear that. So yes, Friday, video on Sufi music coming out. Finished it today. Very excited. I'm gonna try to answer some questions again. There are also some other very exciting videos coming up. I'll do more videos about Shi'ism, some stuff about that coming up. There is a video about the Ghayat al-Hakim, with the picket tricks also coming up. There's going to be a bit of like Islam coming up. It's kind of a recurring theme on this channel, but it's one of those phases right now. Ulysses Jonah, how's your teeth doing? It's they're doing okay. I have one more root canal treatment tomorrow. So I did one, which ended up being the first of two, which I didn't know. But now I'm doing another one tomorrow, and that should be the last one, and then I'm done. So I'm very, very satisfied with that. It's been a lot. I've been going to the dentist regularly since November, and I hate the dentist. Well, I kind of don't anymore because I've gotten used to it, but I don't enjoy it. James Smith, do you drink tea? I do drink tea. I drank tea today. I drank some Japanese sencha tea. I'm a bit of a tea nerd as well. I much prefer tea compared to coffee, for example. So yes, I definitely drink tea. Like I'm one of those people who has the guy ones, the Chinese, to brew with and drink in little cups. So people laugh at me when I do that, but I enjoy it. Oh, that's great, James. You own a tea shop. Of course, you can send me some tea, absolutely. I would love to pay for it, though. Like, I would want to support your business in that case. Yes, do a video. Ulysses, do a video on Japanese tea ceremony. Yeah, maybe, because it's very strongly connected to Zen Buddhism. So it'll probably come. I did a video like a year and a half ago about the mystical origins of coffee and tea, which I talk about the use of tea in religious practices, primarily in Buddhism. There was also some connections to Taoism. And I get that's another thing that I'm doing soon is I'm doing more stuff on Taoism, and tea might come up there. We'll see. Will there Gurgly, sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrongly, I'm sorry. Will there be a video on the Zaidi Shia? I hope so, yes. But, as many people say, there isn't a lot of stuff about the Zaydi Shia, which also means that I don't have access to that much stuff about the Zaydi Shia either. So I'm not an expert on that topic. But I'm very interested in doing that. I am looking forward to studying that topic further and then doing episodes on it. Sika Singh, thank you so much for the kind words. So Taoism, yes, Taoism is awesome. I love doing stuff on Taoism. But the field, when it comes to the academic study of Taoism, there isn't a lot of good stuff because a lot of it is kind of New Agey, questionable Orientalist interpretations, the kind that will very clearly divide between philosophical and religious Taoism and things like that, which I am not a fan of. I have been reading a really great book, which I should remember the name of the author, but I don't, but it's called The Taoist Tradition, which is basically like a course literature book. It's very much like a book you would have as course literature if you do a course on Taoism, but it's really good. I felt like a relief when I was reading that. There's finally someone who's tackling this topic from a perspective that feels scholarly. That's his name, Stefan. Thank you so much. Louis Komjathi. Great stuff. I Shake, have you explored? Well, first of all, thank you so much for the content. Well, thank you for the compliments. Have you ever explored the modern occult movement? I have, but not to any major degree. I'm much more. I know much more about, earlier occultism. I'm similar to Justin in that sense. The modern world of occultism is not my field of expertise. I have a friend called Per Faxneld here in Sweden, who's an expert in that stuff, and he's doing amazing work. He wrote a book, became quite famous, called Satanic Feminism, which is just a fascinating book. But it's not my field of expertise yet. Akil Senpai, why not the traditional books of Taoism, for example, Zhuangzi? I did a full video on Zhuangzi about a year ago. I'm very happy with that video. Probably one of my favorites. I love the Zhuangzi. The Zhuangzi is one of my favorite pieces of literature in history, I think. Just amazingly funny, amazingly profound, difficult in the best kind of way. I love books. The best kind of books are the read them and the first time you don't understand a single word, and then you read it again and you're like, oh, maybe, and then it starts to dawn on you. Like, I love that stuff. There's a great translation of the Zhuangzi by Brooks Seporin, who also it's called Zhuangzi: The Essential Writings, and it includes commentaries by later commentators, both mostly like Buddhist commentators who will have like a Buddhist perspective on the text. I forgot what I was saying. Zhuangzi, right? I became distracted by Zevi's question about Mircea Eliade, who I have a complicated relationship with, I guess, because I haven't read much of his works and I'm not that familiar with it, but I studied it when we studied comparative religion. He was one of the main theoreticians, theorists, whatever. And every time I read him, I kind of liked his style in a way, but in the contemporary study of religions, there's a kind of, people don't like him. He's like outdated, they say. So I've been fed that perspective, like he's fascinating, but we've moved past him. But then when I read him, I kind of like what I've heard. So I don't know. I don't feel informed enough to have an opinion on him, but I'm intrigued by him, to say the least. Aditya, hey Philip, did you check out the Ramanuja statue? Yes, actually, last time I did a live stream, a person in the chat whose name escapes me sent or told me about that, and I looked it up. No, wait, that wasn't in a live stream. That was in a chat. Anyway, I saw that statue, and it's huge. It's yeah. I showed my wife, and she was also amazed. Looks beautiful. I love that he's getting that kind of attention, because I love Ramanuja. I think he's really a fascinating figure. Philip George, how do you pronounce your name? Well, so in Swedish, you pronounce it Filip. Filip Holm. So if you want to be Swedish about it, then that's how you pronounce it. You can say Philip. People have called me Filip, which I don't oppose to it. But yeah, you can call me Philip. It's a Greek name. Originally, I've been told it's a Greek name that means friend of horses, which when I was a kid I thought was lame, but now I kind of love it. Thank you, George or Georg, for the donation. Your channel has helped me a lot with research. You're writing a book. That's very exciting. What are you writing your book about? I would love to know. And I am honored to have helped with creativity. That makes me very happy. So Zevi, you asked me about Mircea Eliade. What are your thoughts on Mircea Eliade, Zevi? Please tell me and suggest to me books to read about him. Kuro Azrem, do you like metal? Yes and no. I used to be a metalhead basically when I was a teenager. I listened to all this stuff, thrash metal like Metallica and Slayer and that stuff. System of a Down, and then through that moved beyond that, and then I kind of left that stuff behind, and now I kind of can't stand some of that stuff. Like I don't listen to Metallica, but sometimes I hear there's good metal out there too. I like all kinds of genres, but there's something about certain kinds of metal that I can't stand right now, probably because I have a history with it, and I kind of associate that with a version of myself that have moved past. But yeah, I don't dislike metal. Do you like Sabaton? I never got into Sabaton. It's too it always felt too, I don't know how to put it into words. It just felt a little too theatrical to me. Like I've always been much more like dark and into the like raw stuff. Tunistic, I am Swedish, yes. And do I play Minecraft? I basically never played Minecraft. I mean, I do play video games, not as much as I used to, of course, because being an adult gets in the way sometimes. But Minecraft never became a thing for me. I work at a school, and so I work with kids that are basically 11, 12, and a lot of them play Minecraft and Roblox. I think Fortnite has kind of fizzled out a bit. It seems to me that Roblox is the new thing. I've never touched that game either, but a lot of talks. Georg, again, I'm curious if thank you for the donation, by the way. I'm curious if you're familiar with the works of Bernadette Roberts. I don't think so. She's one of the most clear-spoken contemplatives of our times. No, I should look her up then. Don't think I've ever heard that name, actually. Oh no. So my comments on Minecraft, I'm by no means saying that it's only a game that kids play. Of course not. I'm just saying that many of the kids that I work with do play that game. But that's a game that, as far as I understand, it's a game that can be played by all kinds of ages. I know many adult friends who play Minecraft as well, so my comments had nothing to do with that. Alamgir, are you planning a video on Wahdat al-Shuhud? At least I would probably at some point tackle the question of the difference between Wahdat al-Wujud and Wahdat al-Shuhud. A difference that I agree with William Chittick in that perhaps there isn't much of one in terms of a difference. At least if we read, Wahdat al-Wujud from the perspective of Ibn Arabi, he seems to say very similar things to what Wahdat al-Shuhud is supposed to be saying. Of course, a lot of Ibn Arabi's later followers would express Wahdat al-Wujud in more, radical ways. It's a fascinating topic, though. So I will probably, yes, I've been thinking about doing a video that tackles that, the difference between those two for a while. It'll probably happen at some point. Mustafa Khadir, tack så mycket, Mustafa. Eva Braun's new Jewish husband. What do you think of Norse mythology? I'm fascinated by Norse mythology, and I've been watching Jackson Crawford for a while, who is a wonderful YouTuber who specializes in ancient Norse, essentially, and on things like Norse mythology too. If you haven't seen Jackson Crawford, that's his name, right, Jack? Yes. You should definitely check out that channel. I don't know nearly as much about Norse mythology as he does, even though I am from a Nordic country. I have the Poetic Edda in Swedish translation, but I should know more. I want to know more about that stuff. There's a kind of documentary on the channel about contemporary Norse practitioners in Sweden. It was one of the first videos I uploaded, I think. DJ Junk. Hi, what do you think about Sufi practices where they call mokhails, angels and jinns, by doing some type of dhikr? Is this real? I've never heard of such a practice. I mean, that sounds the kind of thing that people who don't like Sufis would claim. But I've never heard Sufis talk about it like they are calling jinns. That would belong to a different. Now then we're in the territory of sorcery or magical practices, which Sufis have partaken in occasionally, but not in terms of like a dhikr or as a Sufi practice as we know it. Skeptzig, what do you think of atheism? I don't think much about atheism. It's one way to look at the world, along with many other ways to look at the world. I think it's being an agnostic is which isn't the same as an atheist, but I think it's a reasonable conclusion about the world. It's not necessarily one that I hold, but There are definitely good arguments for atheism. Most of the arguments for atheism that are put forth by atheists, publicly or public figures or not, are usually not very good arguments, but there are very good arguments. Just gonna scroll up because I saw Name's Name. Thank you so much. A donation from my Norwegian brother or sister. Thank you so much. And Bobby, thank you also for your donation. Terrible Truth, Beautiful Lies. Do you like sausage then? I don't eat sausage because I don't really eat meat. I don't call myself a vegetarian because I sometimes eat meat. I do the Buddhist thing where I eat meat if someone offers me meat, or if I go to someone and they have cooked a meal with meat in it, I'll eat it. But generally, I eat a vegetarian diet, so I don't eat. But when I used to eat meats, I did like sausage. Yes. How many languages do you speak? Swedish, English, a little bit of Arabic. I studied Spanish in school between 6th to 9th grade, and I don't remember anything. I can say hola and buenos dias and those kinds of things. But I don't remember that. So English and Swedish, I guess, and just a very limited amount of Arabic. Ulysses, do Swedes, Norwegians, and Danes understand each other? Generally, yes. Swedes are worse at understanding Danes and Norwegians than they are at understanding us. I don't know why, because we feel like we're better than them or something. I don't know, but Norwegian is easier to understand. Danish, harder. But if they speak slowly, then yes. Usually, yes. Eric Virthaler, 92, thank you for the donation. Question, what do you think Behemoth and Leviathan are in the book of Job? And do you believe in evolution? Do you interpret the book of Genesis literally? What I think, well, first of all, what I think Behemoth and Leviathan are, I think they're mythical creatures that ended up in the Bible. They're probably creatures that people in the region, it was part of the belief of people in the region, and it made its way into the book that the people in that region composed. Do I believe in evolution? Yes. I think that in general, the theory of evolution is a very good theory for the evolution of species on Earth. So I generally ascribe to that theory. And do I interpret the book of Genesis literally? No. I wouldn't say so. Let's see if I have missed anything. Could I say some sentences in Arabic? Because yours is good. Thank you. I don't know what, because now I'm getting nervous because you're asking me to speak Arabic when I don't really know how to speak Arabic. I don't know what I would say. I could say Assalamu alaikum, or I could recite poetry by Ibn Arabi. الدين بدين الحب أنا تواجهت ركائبه فالدين ديني وإيماني. because I memorized that poem. Thoughts on the movie Midsommar. I love it. Very disturbing, very dark, very... Yeah, I very much enjoy that. No worries, Evie. Kia Aoki, do you think ancient Egyptian had any influence on Christianity? For example, in the idea of a trinity and life after death. Life after death, maybe. We'll have to go way back to, like, you know, some of the Greek philosophers will state that, you know, the idea of the soul surviving after death comes from the Egyptians originally. I don't know if, you know, if that's true. I'm sure other cultures have had similar ideas too. The idea of the Trinity, I think, would, if we're going to trace it to some kind of intellectual tradition, it would more go, I think, into, you know, theories within Platonism, for example, which, you know, around the time of Christianity actually started to talk about reality in terms of, you know, a monad and dyad and the relationship between those three as being an essential component of reality. For example, I think there's some interesting stuff there. The number 3 returns a lot in those kinds of philosophical traditions right around the time that Christianity starts to develop. I'm not sure there is necessarily a correlation, but there definitely could be. Terrible truth, beautiful lies. He only knows what he's reading. Yeah, I guess so. And I guess also what I've been told, at least in terms of conceptual knowledge. I mean, that all comes from reading, from studying with other people and so on. Then you could argue for the kind of Suravardhan thing of, or the Sufi thing of there being a you know, a direct kind of intuitive knowledge as well. I'm not claiming to have that kind of knowledge, but I don't know what other kind of knowledge I would have, or where my knowledge would come from, if not from other places. You seem to want me to get some knowledge from magic mushrooms. Who's to say I haven't? Iyad and Najar, how are you? I'm doing fine. I'm tired. Like I said in the beginning of the video, or the live stream, I've been working really hard on this Sufi music video. So I'm a bit tired. But other than that, I'm doing just fine. How are you doing? It's really nice when you start to notice people. I mean, most of you guys I've seen before. You know, I've seen some of you people in the comments for, I mean, some of you for years have been there, and I really appreciate you guys. The fact that you're still here, a lot of you. Puya Mazlumi, how did you get interested in studying religions? I can't pinpoint a reason, because I feel like I've always been interested in that kind of thing. I've always been very inquisitive. I've been very, you know, absorbed in questions and thoughts. And, you know, religions have a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts. And I've always just been fascinated by things like mythology and, you know, the history of religions and the origins of different religions. And, you know, it's always just something that's really fascinated me for as long as I can remember, basically. I didn't know I was going to study it, or that was going to become such a big part of my life until I took a course in religious studies as part of a larger sort of education. I've told you this before, but I studied international relations originally, and then I took a course in religion, and that just kind of stuck. Five nine. Önskar dig en god natts sömn, du ser ut att behöva. Do I really look that tired? Moaz A, is it true there's no heaven or hell in Judaism? Well, it's a complicated topic. In the Old Testament, there is no heaven or hell, right? So in the Old Testament, they talk about this thing called the Sheol, which is just this kind of Hades-like place that everyone goes to. And it seems like the idea of heaven and hell comes into Judaism through apocalypticism around the turn of the first millennium. That's one theory. And then made its way into Christianity and so on from there. But then, of course, it has also become a part of some strands of Judaism. So, and there are other people, I think, if Sevi is still in the chat, I'm sure he has much more to say on that, and he knows a lot more about it than I do. But in terms of the Old Testament, they have this thing called Sheol, and there's no direct reference to anything resembling heaven and hell in the way that we think of it. Someone asked something about Swedish folk music. I'm trying to find that question again because that was interesting. Well, the question was if I liked. There it is. Alballism. Alballism. I don't know how to pronounce that. But do you enjoy Swedish folk music? I'm a Stockholm-based folk musician. Come jam. I would love to come jam. I'm also based in Stockholm. I know there's been some jams in Gamla Stan. With medieval folk music jams, which I've been meaning to go to, but I haven't. I don't suppose you've met Morten Hillbom, who's a good friend of mine. He also plays a lot of folk music. He has two groups, one called Axvy and another called Tailcoat, and they do really amazing work. He's an amazing percussionist. And Tony's K, have you ever studied Greek mythology? I mean, we studied Greek mythology in school. And that's not the extent of my studying Greek mythology, but that's part of the sort of curriculum to learn about Greek and Norse mythology and that kind of thing. So I've studied it. As an adult, I've more studied Greek philosophy, more so than mythology. So my knowledge on that is limited, also compared to other mythologies like Egyptian and so on. But I have the basics down. William Gunderson, thank you for the donation. Would you please consider doing a video on the epic free will debate between Luther and Erasmus? Sure. That sounds like a really interesting thing, which I would have to read up more about. But I will definitely write that down. Mohammed Anik, Brother Holm, you should start a series where you read from different classical texts, similar to the reading you did from 1001 Nights. A lot of people have actually requested me to do more videos like that. And if there are people who want me to do that, then I'm happy to do that. I used to do a lot more videos, like shorter videos. That one was an hour long, but short, like I would read sections from works. So I did one where I read the great hymn to the Aten, I have one where I read the Song of the Reed by Rumi. And I haven't done one of those in a while. But maybe it's time I revive that series, perhaps. And maybe I can do longer videos like the one for 1001 Nights. There are copyright questions about that because you're using a particular translation that has a, but I think we can make that work. Purambo, you should read Gilgamesh. I would love that. That's a long one though. It's gonna be a serious, cozy reading Gilgamesh with Filip every Saturday night. Sounds kind of nice, actually. We'll see what we'll do. That's a if not reading the whole Gilgamesh, then certainly parts of it or doing videos on it in some shape or form. Absolutely. Samir Alam, are you a full-time YouTuber? No, I mean I have another job. But in terms of the hours I put into it, I'm kind of a full-time YouTuber too. Although, as I said last time, in the last few months, I've been more careful to take breaks and not overwork myself. I don't know if I could be a full-time YouTuber because I would go crazy just sitting by myself working. I love writing and I love editing most of the time. But if that was all I did, then that wouldn't be good. I think I need, like working at a school as I am right now. That's such a dynamic environment, and there's a lot of energy, which is energy consuming, but it also gives you a lot of energy. I think it's a real nice balance for me to sit here, when I'm at home and thinking about and writing about all these just really complicated philosophical existential questions and histories of religion, and then during the day the complete opposite. Macari, what is the world's first religion in academic consideration? I think that's basically impossible to say. There used to be this idea that the first religion or the first kind of religion was animism, and then that developed into polytheism, and then that became monotheism, and then so on, and then but that's based on a kind of teleological worldview where we're living in the most enlightened age, and everything prior to this has been just a gradual evolution from primitiveness to enlightenment, and that's a very old-fashioned way to look at that. That's not really accepted by the majority of so I'm gonna have to block this person. Obviously, I don't know how to do that. There you go. What was I saying? I forget. Is the volume still low? Okay, so Siawish. There needs to be a better way. Add moderator. Oh no. This is a mess. Let's see if I can solve this. So Siawish, can I make you a moderator? I'm sure you're better at this stuff than I am. Sorry about this, guys. I'm gonna try to ignore it for now and see if we can solve it in some way. Keep asking questions. I'm sure there's a way to ban them, but I don't know really how to do it. That's why I gave Siawish the right to moderate the chat, see if maybe he knows how to do that stuff better than I. Let's see. There were some questions back here. Iyad, a good question. How did you connect to the Sufi order in Sweden? There are plenty of Sufi orders in Sweden, and I've been in contact with a few different ones. I've hung out with the Muridiya in Sweden and the Tijaniya, as well as there's a group that's sort of loosely connected to Chishtiya as well. Well, studying religion, you kind of end up with those kinds of contacts, I guess. You know people who know people. They're not exactly, hidden. Let's see. I saw Mujtaba. Have you read about Sheikh al-Mufid? Yes. I was actually reading a book about Sheikh al-Mufid today, because I'm preparing to do some videos on 12er Shiism, or a video, probably more videos on 12er Shiism. So I've been reading up on Sheikh Mufid and some of the main intellectuals from that tradition. Thank you, Robert Benson, for the donation. Any more Kabbalah content in the future? Definitely. There is a exciting collaboration coming up that's sort of Kabbalah related, at least Jewish mysticism related. Oh, so you do know Morten. Awesome. You studied at KMH at the same time I was studying composition when I was doing folk music. Yes, I've been there. I was there. He had his little room at KMH, and we rehearsed because we were doing a recording together called, it's actually on YouTube. It's called Wahda. It's on my Zini channel. The song is called Wahda, and it's me and Morten and a guy called Arsalan Nasiri, who plays the tanbour, and I play the oud and I sing. And we would do our rehearsals for that recording at KMH. Khalandrium, is Sufi music the same as Shia music? Not really. I mean, so Sufism and Shiism is the majority of Sufis are Sunni, you could say, but there are Shia Sufis as well, as we've seen in my video on the Nimatullahi order, for example. Usually in Shiism, what is, the equivalent of Sufism is known as Irfan, which could be translated as something like Gnosticism, which a lot of the time will reject a lot of the practical aspects of that tradition. So, like, for example, sama, or music, or maybe even dhikr, and things like that, while maintaining the more intellectual sides of Sufism, like Ibn Arabi's ideas, Wahdat al-Wujud, which became very influential for thinkers like Mullah Sadra, who represents that tradition of Irfan rather than, Sufism. So I would say it's a difficult question to answer, but I would say yes, there's a difference, because Sufi music is aimed with a particular sort of, it has a practical use in the sense that it's used to reach a station closer to God, or to help the practitioner on the path, the spiritual path. Whereas in Shia music, you can have Shia music that essentially, is praise hymns or praise songs for the imams like Hussein and Ali and so on. which does not have the same practical function. That would be the main difference. Ayhan, have you ever experienced a metaphysical situation like seeing UFO or something? No, I haven't. And I'm sad about it because I would love to see a UFO. What time is it? 9:30. Okay. Should be wrapping up pretty soon, because I should probably get some sleep before I go to work tomorrow. But I'm gonna stay here for a little while more. Halman Singh, thanks for the Sikh video. Thank you very much. Judging by your last name, Singh, I assume you're a Sikh, which means I'm especially happy when people from the religious tradition I cover appreciate the episodes. That's sort of an extra seal of approval that I am always very happy with, so thank you. Ingrid, are you late? You're a bit late, yes. I mean, can you be late for this kind of thing? It's still live, but we've been going for, what, hour and a half? No? Not even an hour, 51 minutes, okay. So, IDKK, your thoughts on Coptic Orthodox Christianity? Like, these questions are difficult because what else can I say than that I think it's fascinating. I love it. I think it's really interesting. I've never been to a Coptic church. I've been to, so I was in St. Petersburg back in 2017 in a sort of an Eastern Orthodox church, which was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in terms of like religious tourism or whatever you want to call it. Just being there for the liturgy and hearing the choir sing was really, really touching. That's something that will always stay with me. And then I also the same day went to an Armenian Orthodox church, but never a Coptic church. I've never been to Egypt, so when I go to Egypt, I will definitely want to do some of that. XJW Messianic, thank you for the donation. Can you at some point do a video regarding Messianic Judaism? Absolutely. Noted. I will keep that in mind. CDL Karchi, thank you also for the donation. Would you be interested in doing a video on early Arabic cosmology? How early are we talking? Are we talking early Islamic or pre-Islamic? And the answer to both questions is yes. But there's only so much time. It's not something that I'm prioritizing right now, but definitely I would eventually get to every conceivable topic if I had all the time in the world. But hopefully I'll get there eventually. So pre-Islamic, okay, yeah, absolutely. I did one video on pre-Islamic religion, which was kind of just covering the basics because after all, we don't know all that much. With the research of people like Ahmed al-Jalad, we're getting more and more information. So I'm looking forward to all the discoveries that are going to be made about pre-Islamic Arabia and the religious and intellectual traditions that existed there. And once that information comes out, I'll definitely want to do some episodes on that. Siawish asks if I want to collaborate on a video about early Muslim dogma. What Muslims believed before Abdul Malik. So your Muslims in quotation marks suggest to me that this is related to theories like Donner's believers movement theory, which I've been I think that's a very interesting perspective So I'm definitely open to doing that. You can hit me up on Discord or whatever. We can talk more. Aaron Ball, thank you for the donation. Mr. Matrix, are you going to make a Discord server? There is a Discord server, but it's only for my patrons. For now. Zirak, do you think that all religions are from the same source and they diverged or changed from each other with time? No. Not in terms of like a historical view of religion. If you mean like it comes from the same source as in it comes from the same, human tendency or from the same psychological or, perhaps, even spiritual source, the same tendency within the human soul to seek those kinds of answers. I'm definitely more open to that kind of perspective. But in terms of having like an actual same source, from a historical perspective, no. It seems that not all religions, but it seems that religions come from all kinds of directions in human history. Ooh, what sort of thing upsets you seeing the way the West covers Islam? All kinds of things. It's just really simplified. It's often based on Orientalist assumptions or on skewed perspectives, and Islam is portrayed as inherently fundamentalistic in a negative sense, right? Or violent and so on, which is of course not the whole story. And that's one of the reasons I've focused so much on Islam, and why I do this kind of content is to counter those kinds of awful portrayals of not just Islam, but all kinds of religions. But Islam has, of course, had an especially bad time in terms of coverage in the West in the last few decades. Where do you draw the line? Zara Bahajwi. Where do you draw the line between Islam and Islamism? So the sort of technical definition of Islamism would be, the idea that Islam should dictate politics, essentially. And I tend to go with that kind of definition. A lot of people look at Islamism as Islamic, as synonymous with terrorism or extremism, which is also problematic, right? Because the majority of Islamism is not like that. It's simply a perspective where, Muslims think Islam should play a major role in political life, or as part of the political system, essentially. In the lab, why Islam so violent and followers so full of hate? I wouldn't say that that's true. There are violent Muslims. There are Muslims who are hateful, but it would be a huge mistake to think that Islam in itself is hateful or violent, because religions aren't violent or hateful. It is people who are hateful and violent. And to view Muslims in particular as hateful or violent is not only inaccurate, but in the cases where there may be Muslims who are violent or frustrated also comes from political and social circumstances in the Middle East today and for the last couple of 100 years. For example, colonialism. When you start to look at that kind of history, you start to realize where a lot of those frustrations come from, without necessarily agreeing with. You don't have to agree with the conclusions of those people, but you can definitely understand where that kind of frustration comes from, right? So I would be very careful with, conflating that as a result of the religion itself, and on top of that, to say that kind of thing is inaccurate to begin with also. Now, there's a lot of questions right now, and it's going by really fast, and my eyes and brain is really tired right now. I'm trying to keep up. So sorry if I miss a lot of your questions. Angela's here. Thank you for coming, Angela. I'm very glad to see you. Thank you for our last collaboration. That was wonderful. I always enjoy working with you and look forward to working with you again. Everyone here should definitely check out Angela's Symposium. She is an expert on, all things occult, things like shamanism, and, she's a great scholar and has a YouTube channel called Angela Symposium. You should check out if you're into that kind of content. Toonie Stick is using Google Translate. Thank you for calling me cool. That was actually quite an intelligible sentence in Swedish. Google Translate has become a lot better over the years, I've noticed. Mohammed Kamaran, if you had two options, what would you study more, philosophy or science, and why? I would go back to a previous definition of science as simply as the same thing as philosophy, and get two flies with one stone. Is that how you say it? Two birds with one stone. That's a difficult question. It's a very difficult question. I guess I've chosen philosophy more so than science, but I don't really separate them all that much. Probably because I spent so much time with old medieval philosophers and they didn't see much of or make that clear of a distinction. But I think the two fields can definitely contribute and help each other out. I think it's unhelpful to separate them too much. But there's also definitely something to be said for science as a method, and have a very sort of positivistic view on that. In some regards, at least. But that can then be informed by, philosophical speculation. I don't know. I'm ranting. I'm just babbling. A Swedish question. Vilken exam har du? Och om du hade inte din YouTube-kanal, hur skulle du tjäna pengar? So what degree do I have? I have a master's degree in religious studies and I have a bachelor's degree in international relations. So I don't have fancy PhDs like a lot of my colleagues here on YouTube. But I have a master's degree. Second question, if I didn't have my YouTube channel, how would you make money? Well, I do make money from another job. I work as a teacher, as an English teacher out of school. Maybe through, I'm also a musician. I would maybe do some music. Money is never the how do you say it? It's not the reason I do any of these things. It's a nice bonus though. And it helps to continue doing these things. My patrons, who I'm eternally indebted to, and so grateful for everyone who donates and so on. That definitely helps in terms of getting material, books and updating the equipment so that I can make better videos and so on. So, of course, money is a factor that's very important, or maybe not important, but it helps in a lot of ways. But it's never been the reason I've done any of these things. That's a very sort of it's a cliche to say, but in this case, it's true. Any collabs with religion for breakfast? Yes. Without saying too much, yes, we have some stuff that we want to do, but it's not happening in the coming weeks at least. It's a little ways off, but I will definitely be working with Andrew more. Aditya Rasin Gohil, do your students perceive your beard as other religion looks as increasing religious nationalism, polarization of Scandinavia too? I don't quite get your question. Maybe you could formulate that a bit differently. My students perceive my beard. They tend to like my beard. They sometimes tell me I should trim it a bit more, which is fair enough. I don't really take as much care of it as I should, but they've told me I should color my beard or dye my beard purple, which I'm not going to do, but they enjoy the beard. Mohammed Anik, again, Brother Holm, during your research on Sufi music, have you come across the music of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and other Pakistani musicians? Yes, as I said in the beginning of the live stream, thank you, CD El Karhi or Karshi, again, for the donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the support. Nusrat, yes. So, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, I've been listening to Nusrat since before I knew what Sufism was. I've been listening to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan since I was a kid. And so I didn't have to discover him through any research because I've always known him. And I've always been a huge fan of him. And he's going to show up in the Sufi music video. Travis Chambray. Why did Jesus say, "I came not to bring peace, but a sword"? That's the question, right? Jesus was quite the radical guy, I think. Not necessarily that he meant that in a violent way. You should ask a Christian theologian to answer that question. There are various interpretations of what that means. But I've always seen Jesus as quite a sort of radical figure. The love that he emphasizes, right? It's not your kind of coffee drinking, being nice to people love. Like the love that Jesus teaches and the love of the New Testament that Christianity has at its base, it's a radical kind of love, right? It's an extreme love. And so even in that sense, it's kind of, his teachings are radical. And so I think that kind of quote is not surprising. I don't know. I can't give you an interpretation because I'm not a Christian theologian, and I'm not. How do you say? I'm not authorized to give an interpretation. So first of all, MIDI 510, thank you very much for the donation. Do you have an interest in the frameworks for understanding God and the relationships between God and humanity using modern language and context? So how do you mean? So what's a modern language, and what's modern languages and context in this case? You mean like in terms of sort of scientific, theoretical language? There's a great, I don't remember who it was, but there was a comic, or a comedian who said something like, to look for God using science is like searching for your car keys using Google, which I thought was, well, kind of funny, but also a bit profound as well, in that, it's kind of a useless thing to use scientific tools to discover something like that. That's a completely other thing. Maybe rephrased. I just started improvising it because I didn't fully understand what you meant, I think. I saw a good question here. Tim, what do you think is the main reason icons are prohibited in Islam? It seems pretty clear to me that, well, first of all, icons, I guess, is kind of always prohibited in Islam in terms of icons as, figures of devotion, right? Not to say that depictions of humans and animals are universally prohibited in Islam. There have been many who have held different opinions, different schools that have different opinions on that and so on. But I think the reason why there is a general controversy around images and so on in Islam is because Islam originates in an environment where it stands in complete opposition to the pagan religions in Arabia at the time of the life of the Prophet Muhammad. And so it's obvious, it's an obvious thing for this new community of Muhammad's to try to take as much of to put as much distance between themselves and the practices of the pre-Islamic Arabs as possible. And that includes, this complete eradication of all kinds of idolatry, right? And any kind of devotion and worship of images. And so it seems very clear to me that that's where that comes from, that there's always this unease about images, of whether of humans or of animals, because that's a kind of to some it gets too close to the kind of polytheistic practices where it can lead to that. Thank you, N, for the donation. Sufi resources in Sverige, in Sweden. I see only Sunni Shia. Resources as in like people. There's a book by my old supervisor called Sufism in Sweden, or Sufism i Sverige, which sort of goes through all the different Sufi orders and where they are located and who's the leaders and so on. So, and it's published by the what's it called? I don't remember, but it's called Sufism i Sverige. You should check that out if you're interested in knowing more about the different Sufi organizations in Sweden. I'm thinking I should start wrapping up because it's 10 o'clock over here, so 10 p.m. and I need to start thinking about getting some sleep. But thank you all so much for showing up, for asking your questions, for donating, for being here. I never got to hear Zevi's answer to the Mircea Eliade question. Maybe next time. But yeah, thank you so much. Look forward to the video on Sufi music. It's coming out on Friday. Don't know what time on Friday, but it's coming out. It's, you know, for those who weren't here in the beginning, it's a long one. It's going to be an hour long. It's one of my most ambitious videos. It's going to cover all the bases, you know, the practical side, the theoretical side, and it's going to be really good. I'm very proud of it so far. Well, it's done and I'm proud of it right now. I'm sure I'll find things that I want to change, as you know, 2 seconds after I release it, but I'm very happy with how it's turned out, and I hope you're going to like it too. I very much look forward to seeing what you think, because it's one of my favorite topics. You know, it's a topic that's been part of my academic career from the beginning. It's always been one of my main things, is music and religion, and music in Sufism in particular. So, good night, everyone. If you, like me, are going to sleep soon, and yeah, I'll do another live stream like this soon enough. But before then, I hope to see you perhaps in a sort of premiere live chat on Friday if we do a premiere, or at least in the comments on that next video. So thanks so much. Bye.